Hi friends, welcome to our channel. In this video, we are going to discuss about what is the usage of finally keyboard in Java exception handling. Already in our previous video, we have discussed what is exception in Java and its hierarchy, also how to handle exception by using try catch keyword in Java. In case if you haven't watched that video, so the link is available in the description. So please watch that video. Now let us get into this finally keyword. So step by step we'll understand what is finally keyboard and what is the real life usage of finally block in case of Java exception handling. You can look at this code. So I have a code which is displaying before exception, and I have a try block. In the try block br sub slash 0, it is going to throw arithmetic exception. Already, as we discussed in our previous video, a single try block can come with a number of catch block. So finally, for this particular try block, I have a number format exception catch block, as well as I have a catch block for arithmetic exception. At the end, I have defined my finally block, which is displaying a statement inside finally block. And then I have a statement which is displaying after exception. So already we know because of the slash 0, it is going to throw arithmetic exception, and I have a catch block for arithmetic exception. So it will execute this catch block, and since I handle this exception, it is going to continue my application and it will display after exception. Let us run this code and we'll observe this finally block. You can look at my output. So at first it is displaying before exception, and in the try block it is throwing arithmetic exception, and I have a relevant catch block to handle that exception. So it is executing the catch block. Since I handle the exception, it is continuing my remaining code, as well as it is executing my finally block. So finally, so the one point right now we are understanding that if the exception is handled, then the finally block is executing as per this particular code. Yes, we have handled arithmetic exception, and the code is going to continue. Also, it is executing finally block. Let me make a small change in my try block. Let me command this line. So right now you can look at my code. In this try block, there is no exception. Previously, the exception occurred and we have handled by using the relevant catch block, and it is executing the finally block. So right now you can look at my code. In my try block, so there is no exception. Let us run this code and we'll observe our finally block with the help of our output. You can see it is executing the finally block. So finally, right now we have cleared 2 points. The exception is occurred or not. It is executing finally block. So previously the exception is occurred and we have handled it, but right now there is no exception in my program, even though it is executing the finally block. Let me modify the code slightly once again. I'm just trying to create one array with negative size. Already in our previous video, we have discussed because of this line, it is going to throw negative array size exception. So right now you can look at my catch block. I have a catch block for number format exception and I have a catch block for arithmetic exception. But there is no exception handling mechanism for negative array size exception. So which means the application is going to terminate abnormally. Now let us run this code and we'll understood in this scenario whether the finally block will execute or not. You can look at my output. So the application is going to terminate abnormally because of there is no exception handling mechanism for negative array size exception, even though before it is terminating, it is executing the finally block. So hope friends, so you got some idea about the finally block. So finally the summarization is, so this finally block will get executed always, whether the exception is occurred or not, whether the exception is handled or not, whatever it is, always it is going to execute our finally block. So now definitely we'll get a question. What should be the usage or what should be the real life usage of this finally block in a real application? You can consider this scenario because of there is no exception handling mechanism. The application is going to terminate abnormally, but before that it is executing my finally block. So that's why in my output, before terminating the application, it is executing the finally block. So which means inside finally block, I can write some business logic which will execute before the application terminate abnormally, and with the help of that logic I can make a smooth termination of my application. The smooth termination code I can write down inside my finally block. Let us assume that I have a real life application. So the application is lively running on a server, and just assume that the application is using a database, and due to some crash or due to some unexpected uh, runtime error, the application is going to terminate abnormally. But before that, I have to close the database because the database is opened by my application, but the application is going to terminate abnormally. Before terminating the application, I have to smoothly close my database. So finally inside this finally block, I can write down my database closing code so that it will not crash my database. Maybe the application is going to terminate, but at least it will not crash my database. And same way you can take many scenario. So maybe the application is using your file. Just assume that the application is going to terminate abnormally, but before that I have to close that file. Yes, the file may have some important data. So those kind of smooth termination code I can write down inside my finally block, so that even though application is terminating abnormally, I can ensure that it is not disturbing other resources, right? So like database closing code, file closing code, or I may want to release the resources which is using by this application, or I may want to recycle the memory, or I may want to reset some variable. So those kind of smooth termination code I can write down inside my finally block. Yes, we know that this finally block is going to execute always, whether the exception is occurred or not, or whether the exception is handled or not. So whatever it is going to execute my finally block. So finally, in a real life application, so we are using finally block to make a smooth termination of my application. It may be closing a database or releasing the resource. I mean, it will be very depends the application. So hope friends, we are clear about what is finally block and what is the real life usage of this finally block. Also, we have to remember one more point. For a single try block, I can have a number of catch block. For a single try block, I can have a number of catch block. But a single try block can come with only one finally block. So we cannot define multiple finally block. Yes, syntactically, it will allow only one finally block. In that finally block, we will write down all uh, smooth termination code. So hope friends, we are clear about what is the usage of this finally keyword in Java exception handling. In our next video, we'll discuss about uh, checked and unchecked exception in Java. So what is checked and what is unchecked exception in Java, and usage of throws keyword, as well as in another video we'll discuss about how to create our own exception, or how to throw our own exception object by using throw keyword. Thanks friends for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe and click on the bell symbol so that as soon as I upload the new video, you will be getting the notification. Also, you can share it with your friends.